Today I'm going to show you how to draw this classic Velociraptor from Jurassic Park. No, it's not the scientifically accurate Velociraptor. This is the Velociraptor created by Stan Winston Studios. And speaking of Stan Winston, I was gifted this book called The Winston Effect, and inside it are a ton of great visual images from all Stan Winston's past works, and I've been using those images as references to study from. If you'd like a copy of this book, I'll try to remember to put a link down in the description below. Here's an epic 2-page spread with my hand as a visual size comparison so you can get an idea of just how big this book is, but I'm mainly going to be using this bit of photo as a reference. I'm also studying the detail in the hands and around here in the knee, and also all those wrinkles. See those wrinkles around the stomach area? So pay attention to those wrinkles around the thighs, around the stomach area, and it can also be really hard to find a good photo reference online of Velociraptor's feet. So just check out the amount of detail in that foot right there. And to give you a visual idea of how close we are and why printed media will always be better than photos online, unless you're using a 4K display, there's my finger, and the detail in that print is still damn amazing. So the importance of finding super high resolution images at large scale so you can study all that detail. And one of the best ways to learn to draw even better is to study detail. So hopefully I usually show a good amount of detail around here, down here, and along the back. Those little lines that you can see, those little wrinkles in the skin, in the folds. That stuff is very important to keep in mind if you want to have complete accuracy in your drawing. So let's begin, shall we? First, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line here. This is basically so we know the proportions of where things are. And then we kind of want to divvy it up into sections because we want the head, the neck, the torso, the thigh, and the tail. So that's where we're going to start off with. So I'm just going to do a loose, very loose shape for the body, because the whole idea of having it loose is, you know, we're going to be erasing it and fixing it up. So I'm just going to put the head there, neck, and it's already too big. Take 2. So I think the body will be somewhere around here. Generally speaking, the thigh for the dinosaurs, all dinosaurs really, the legs seem to be kind of in the middle, so we'll use that as a starting point. And we'll have the torso around here. So I'm just blocking in some very loose lines so we know what we've actually got to work with. Tail. Probably still can't fit the whole tail in because it does have quite a long tail. The neck. And then the head, probably a little bit lower. This is me roughing in kind of the proportions to see how big it actually fits, and then I can kind of basically explain it better later. Just making sure that it all fits. Velociraptor proportions can be quite hard to get right the first time around. I'm roughing in it all in for myself so I can understand if I've got the proportions right, and then I can explain it after. And just to explain this part, you can probably tell that I'm using a lot of different angles and lines. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with where the proportions are. Now to explain it, the neck will be there, so for this image the leg is kind of in the middle of the page. That means the shoulder point here fits kind of quarter in between the front and the middle of the dinosaur. And around here, the neck and the head seem to be fairly in equal proportions. The thigh is roughly the front of the thigh, kind of goes in between the distance between the front of the chest and the back of the thigh, and the thigh itself is the equivalent size of the torso. And then the tail will point up. So this point will be the middle starting of the thigh. This point here is where the thigh will finish, so don't care too much about the loose lines around here. Around here is the top of the back of the neck. Here will be the front of the snout, and around here will be the back of the head. So from the back of the neck to the front of the snout is about 3 kind of segments, like so. The thigh is a fairly triangular shape, like so. That's the starting off point. So draw a line up here for that. What I'll do is I'm going to raise lightly so I can see it, and then I can explain it. The knee area is roughly the same distance between the top of the thigh and the bottom of the foot, so the knee will be around there. Then we'll have a bit of a curved line here for the calf, and the actual calf and shin is again another triangular, almost a cone shape. And now we're going to actually refine a little bit of the thigh shape right now, because the thigh doesn't go all the way up here. Matter of fact, it finishes around here, so I'm going to draw a line there and bring it down to the knee. Now the back of the heel is fairly pointed, so it's going to be like that, and it's going to be curved in like that, so the ankle will be kind of around there. Now we'll draw a circle for where the position of the front shoulders will be, so that's a bit about there, and the elbow will be around here. It seems to have a very short forearm, the Jurassic Park version that is. So I'm going to draw a line back there for the back of the forearm. No, that's the upper arm. Then we're going to draw a circle around here for the wrist pivot point. Then we're going to bring a line out here, like so. And that's going to be the front arm, forearm as it were. And the wrist is narrow and it gets a little bit wider up to around there. So a nice curved line like so. Now, I'm going to draw a line like that and then bring it up to a corner, sort of not directly up, but to a slight angle. And then we'll curve it around to about there. So that connects to there. I like to use bits and pieces of the body as a visual representation of where lines should go to build up the balance. So because I've done that line, I can now tell that there should be a line coming up down around here for the chest, the front of the chest and the neck. And then that will bring a line here and bring it down for the throat. Now I'm going to tidy up around the back. It's a fairly easy line now that we've got that line and that line to work with. We're just going to bring it and make it a little bit more curved. I'm also going to tidy up around here so you can actually see all that better. And now I'm going to bring a line up here for the shoulder bone. And you can't actually really see the shoulder bone from what I can see in the Stan Winston model, so we're not going to draw a very distinct shoulder bone, just going to draw the actual pivot point. So we've got the circle there already, and we just refine it like that, and then we add an extra little curved line here for the, I guess you call it the bicep area. Now the chest area, the whole torso itself, would kind of be like an oval, so I'm just going to draw a loose oval where it would be positioned between the front shoulder and the thigh. No, I did that wrong. Just realizing I did that wrong. I think this line is actually a little bit too far forward, so I'm going to erase that. I'll erase it lightly so you can still see it, and I'm going to bring that line more angled like that. And then that circle kind of fits in like there. Then I'm going to get that torso area, because we can still see the slight line there. And I'm going to bring that line down and then connect it to the leg there. And down through here would be where the pelvis is, the pelvic bone. So after readjusting the camera, I think it's actually more like here. Like I say in a lot of my videos, it's all about sculpting, so you add a line because it might not necessarily be how it should be the first time around, and then you erase the old line, you look over it, and then you decide if that actually works better, which I think it does now. And because the rib cage would be around here, I'm going to add those little wrinkles that connect the leg to the torso, or the rib cage area, like so. Add a couple of them, one down here, and then one down here. I'm actually going to tidy it up and lighten it a bit because we don't want it too strong. We don't want those lines to be too dominating. So that's better. I'm going to refine that arm. We will eventually get to the head, but we're going to continue on. I like to build it up in steps. So now around here, we're going to bring out the pelvis to about there, and then a long line out, and that will be the tail. And this line was initially the sort of make-up of that thigh area, but now we're going to use that line, we're going to refine and actually put some lines where the end of the thigh would actually be. So we're adding a couple of lines here, a line here, which is actually a sort of a muscle line, and just adding a few little lines here and there. Okay, now I'm actually going to tidy up all that area. And you can see it's slowly coming along now. So up around here we're going to fix the thigh and bring it out towards the tail. And I think we'll actually make the tail a little narrower. So again, adding extra lines to readjust the shape. You don't have to draw it perfectly the first time around. The first line doesn't have to be the last line. So I think I'm happy with that line. And now, there's a bit of a muscle area in here, so I'm going to add some lines that don't necessarily make a finished line, but they give the impression of a muscle underneath the skin. And again, I've made those lines a little bit dark, so I'm going to just gently erase them, because you want some of your lines dark, some of them soft. I'm going to darken that up for some nice contrast, and I'm going to tidy up the bottom of the tail. Let's draw it out and see how far we can actually get onto the paper. Now we're just going to tidy up those lines. Still needs a bit more refinement up this end. You're basically crafting a line, taking bits away, adding bits, and just trying to get it to look as smooth and correct as possible. Drawing long lines can be quite difficult, or at least they are for me. Now I think we'll bring the shin down, like so, and I think we'll start working on the leg and foot. I'm using the overall shape of the body to try and get the visual idea of the proportions, and I'm thinking that around here is a good spot to have the claws. And I like to draw the claws in first because it gives me an idea of how the whole overall shape of the body will be. So if you draw the claws in and they look like they're a little bit too close or they're a little bit too far out for where the foot would be, that gives you a good idea of a proportion. Then I'm going to draw in a bit of a shape here. Now we're going to draw the bottom of the foot. I'm going to draw some padding underneath the heel and under the toe. And we'll probably draw 3 lumps of padding under the toe, like so. And I like to give it a little bit of padding around there. 2 little lines that kind of give the impression of a bit of a heel and a bit of a foot. Then I draw the top of the toe, and we'll just draw it along, connecting that to the front of the shin, or whatever this line is called. And then we'll add a nice fatty plump bit of toe, otherwise known as the circle. And from that, we'll draw a little line in there, and we'll draw a sickle claw coming out from its toe. Give it a nice sharp point at the end. I'm going to colour in that sickle claw. And I also like to add a little line in here, because if you look at a lot of the raptor claws online, you'll see there's a bit of a line in there. So it's subtle, you can barely see it, but it's just that little bit of extra detail that I like to add in there. And from observing that photo, it actually looks like its toe claws are actually a lot longer. More like that. Might erase just a little bit under it. Then we're going to draw a bunch of those scute scales along the top of the foot. And you can tell how thin that line is, so I'm going to try and find a pencil that's just a little bit stronger. See if this one's a bit stronger. There we go, that's a little bit stronger and a little bit thicker. You want that line to be at least visible. I'm going to draw that little curved part over there. And then while we're in here, I'm just going to add a little bit of definition to the knee. And I'm going to continue drawing that shin. I was also adding a few little lines down in there for the detail, and a few there, and a line there for the calf muscle. Then we're going to refine some of the muscles and lines inside this part of the leg, and we're going to refine and tidy up and finish up that part of the calf. Now we can probably erase the knee, and then we're going to refine and tidy up a little bit more of the foot, adding a little bit of a line in here for the ankle. And I might put a little bit of a line in here just to emphasize the connecting part of the foot to the shin, even though technically this is the shin. It's just one very long extended, kind of actually the foot really, but yeah. I'm going to add a few little lines in here for extra little bit of detail, and then I'm going to just finish up that bit of padding like so. Now while we're in here, might as well start working on the claws for the fingers. When I'm looking at the photo, they kind of line up to about there. I'm actually thinking that the chest might actually be a little bit too far down, so I might make the chest a little bit narrower, like that. I think that's a bit better, and it might actually help because at the moment the tail's looking a little bit too stocky like a T-Rex, so it still has that pelvic bone down there, but I'm going to make the tail a little narrower. Again, it's just adding a line and then removing the other line, just like sculpting. And then we shall remove that bit of line, and hopefully that makes it a little slender, because T-Rex is stocky but Raptor is slender. I could probably actually make it even a little bit narrower still, so it kind of looks like they're making the line thicker, but it's actually that I'm gradually moving the tail just a little bit further up, and then I raise the lower edge of that line and it just shuffles it up a fraction. We also got rid of a lot of the lines that are around there, so I'm also going to now draw some lines here, just so it looks like the tail. And I might do the same down here. It's also very subtle, but there are some light lines. I'm just going to add a few little there to give the impression of a thigh muscle, because you know it does jump, it is quite strong in the legs. And now I'm going to add some lines up around here, so it looks like that there's muscles connecting from the back to the leg, and I'm adding an extra line there. It's a bit of a wrinkle line. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the wrist down a little bit, and then see if putting in some claws around here makes the overall proportions and composition look okay. And it has 3 main pivot joints in each of the fingers, and the fingers are quite long too, so I'm going to make them long like that, then bring that up, and then around here it's kind of going to look like a bit of a hand. And I think it's actually still a bit too long. The tips of the claws kind of reach around there. I'm just going to erase again. It doesn't hurt to erase things. I'm going to erase that and make the claw there. That's going to be the main finger. And then a bump there. that comes out to the finger there. And then we'll do the same there. I'm going to erase that circle that I originally drew. And I think I'm going to bring out one finger. Bring it out a little bit and then curl it in. So that's a finger joint, then it comes down to about, I'm gonna make the finger joints there and the claws come out there. And I'm actually gonna bring that wrist in a little bit more. And I'm gonna make the hand come in a little bit more like that. Now yes, that is not how a Velociraptor's real hand would look. Velociraptors themselves are incredibly inaccurate in Jurassic Park, but that's okay, because they didn't ask for realism, they wanted more teeth. So just refining the wrist there, and there's a bit of a muscle there. It kind of almost looks like a bit like a human arm, really. And I think the real Velociraptor would look very different to that. I'm going to draw it, fix it up like that. But if you're going to comment and say that that's not how a Velociraptor looks, you obviously didn't read the title, the description, or anything like that, because I've specifically said that this is a Jurassic Park Velociraptor, so that's up to you. And I'm actually going to make a bit of a line here just to give the impression of a torso a little bit more. I'm going to add some lines there. It's a little bit different to the original image that I was looking at, but that's okay because that image was a reference. Bringing it in closer now, I'm just going to draw the scute scales running along the fingers, but I'm just adjusting the fingers slightly. Just adjusting the padding in the fingers, adjusting the claws a little bit, the padding, then that claw. They're kind of very sort of camouflaged in among each other really, but hopefully you can kind of see that. Then I'm going to draw the scute scales that run along its fingers. And they get a little bit narrower up there. Bring that down there. And I'm going to add some little subtle lines there, because you don't want them too big. These little lines are just added little bits of detail. Going to strengthen up that line. Now we're at the Velociraptor head, and I'm going to put a line here for the back of the jaw. I'm going to refine the neck just a little bit, sharpening up the line there so you can see the difference between the neck and the chest. I'm going to draw in some little lines up here for the skin folds, and I'm probably going to finish it up around at the neck and the head. So I want to make sure that my proportions are right for the head. I'm going to draw a line here for the back of the head. I'm actually going to erase a lot of that loose line because it was confusing me, and we're going to make the shape of the head angular. I think I might actually bring that line up a little bit. So we've got the shape of the top of the head. Around here would be the top of the lower jaw, and in between the head we'll draw a shape, a long curved line like that. So down at an angle at the tip of the nose, and then down along here. Then I'm going to draw the back ear, sort of ear hole around there. And then there's a kind of a sort of a oval shape here for the indentation of the eye socket area. We'll be refining that. And also a long oval shape here for the nasal passage of the snout. Then we'll draw a line around here for where we want the position of the end of the chin. And then we'll bring a line very much like the contour shape of that, the top of the mouth, and we'll bring it up and back. So a bit of a curve like that. It's subtle but visible. Gonna fix up that part of the neck, because you want all the areas to line up correctly. So I'm actually going to draw some of the folds in the skin of the neck just to help me visualize if it's actually in correct proportions. So I've actually got a feeling that I drew the lower jaw a little bit too low. So I'm going to try and fix up that part of the jaw, the skull, and then I'll bring it up a little higher with the mouth like that. See if that looks more, yeah, that looks a little bit more in proportion. See, sometimes you want to pull back a little bit just to make sure everything's kind of throughout the whole image in proportion, and it's looking okay. So I'm going to fix up this line. That's the rear end of the jaw, and we're going to make it come up here, but it's not going to be totally connected. I'm going to erase some of these lines just to make it a little bit more visible, and I'm going to draw a line coming down here for the membrane between the top and the bottom of the jaw. So around here, it's thicker and broader at this part of the jaw, and it's kind of like that. It's you could almost call it a diamond shape, or a skewed rectangle that comes down to the tip of the chin, and the chin is curved and comes in very narrowly. Although I did make it a little bit too broad at one end, so I'm just gonna chisel it in just a little bit and then erase. The subtlest of line changes can make or break the shape, really. So that's looking alright. Also keeping in mind, that's how big my hand is, right? So we're working at a very small proportion, and this is not digital, so I don't have the luxury of digital work to make life easier for me. So I'm gonna fix up that part of the head. I'm gonna bring in the snout up to about there, and then buzz off, crow. And then we're gonna draw an important line that dictates the shape of the upper eyebrow ridge, which defines what the Velociraptor's head looks like in the Jurassic Park series. So notice that curve. That curve is for the eyebrow ridge that goes up to the snout ridge and then comes down to about there. Then we're going to fix up a line around here, and we're just chiseling and adjusting and refining the shape as we go along. And even though we drew this line, there's still a line that goes here for the top of the actual skull. So the skull line is separated from the actual brow ridge. And we'll bring that up along to the back of the head. So I've made that line a little bit dark. I'm going to erase it a little bit. I'm going to erase that line a little bit too. We don't want it overpowering. It's always a fine line between the lines being too dark and not dark enough. Then we're going to refine the tip of the lips, like so. And then, because it's still looking a bit weird, what we need to do now is we need to add in the eye. I'm going to draw in, this will probably take a few goes perhaps, but the top of the eyelid goes about there. So the distance between the top of the eyebrow ridge and the bottom line that also starts the eye socket, that distance is also the distance you want to have from the eye socket to the eyelid. Then we'll bring it in a little bit. And then the Velociraptor in Jurassic Park The Lost World and the Velociraptor in Jurassic Park both have slightly different shaped eyes, and I've noticed that's fairly different in among all the raptors. I think the Velociraptors in The Lost World, their eyes are a little bit smaller, so I'm going to go with the eyes from Jurassic Park. And I'm pretty sure that the Jurassic World raptors have similar shaped eyes. So we'll go like that. Give it a nice slit in the eye for the pupil. And then we'll draw a line here for the underneath of the eye, and a line here for a bit of the indentation area. Then I'm going to erase bits and pieces, just gently, adding very light lines. And a line there, bring that down, and then finishing up the top end of the jaw like so, and the shape is coming along now. we're going to add in some lines for the neck. So adding some fold lines. You don't have to be too particular, as you can tell I'm being fairly loose, probably drawing a little bit too fast, but I'm just drawing some subtle little lines. And I'm going to draw a line there for that throat. You want some lines kind of coming down here, fairly loose, well, loose as in not completely planned, and that's going to be like the throat. So just kind of little wiggly lines. You want it to look organic. And then there seems to be a little line there for behind the neck, or behind the head, and a line there. Then there's a line here. We'll draw some teeth. They're very tiny compared to the size of the actual image and the size of my lid. And the teeth get wider and longer near the back end of the mouth. They're narrower and shorter at the front, and they get progressively wider and longer at the end. I'm going to add some little teeth around here. And we want Velociraptor to be able to breathe, so of course, nostril hole. So upon visually reviewing the overall image, it does kind of look like its head is a little bit too big. And to be honest, I think its head probably finishes up more around here. So what we can do is we can chip away here to make it a little bit narrower. I do think that the snout needs to be coming down a little bit. We'll also bring the length of the jaw in, narrowing it down like that, and we'll also make the jaw, the upper jaw, a little thinner and narrower. So that looks like a mess. As you can see, we've got the original outline, but through the magic of editing, reshaping the upper side of the head, we've fixed up the proportions a bit. Also, now that snout line needs to be in a bit more. Bring that up to around there. And we'll fix up the teeth. I'm also going to add a little bit of a tongue in there, just... I don't know if actually the raptors had tongues, I can't fully remember, but I'm adding a little tongue anyway. Kind of like a bird tongue. And then, I think what we need to do now is, because it looks like its eye is too cartoonish, I'm now going to add a subtle bit of shading in there. Subtle bit of shading underneath, making it very light on the outer edge, and also going to bring a bit of shading out along here, along the snout. Then I'm going to fix it up a little bit. Fix up a line there, adding a line there. And then I'm going to go through and just tidy up the back a little bit. The back of the neck. Adding some stronger lines near the edge and making them lighter near the middle. Then adding some lines for the wrinkles in the skin down along here. A few little lines here and there, just for added little tiny bits of detail. Strengthen and refine that line. Add some subtle skin line. Just subtle, doesn't need to be too strong. Gonna add a few little bits of scale here. You won't be able to see it too much anyway, so just some subtle loose things there. Some little lip scales. And at this point you really want to be using a mechanical pencil, otherwise you probably won't be able to get that sharp little detail unless you're working at a much larger scale. Adding some lines here and there, a few little subtle grid lines there. Can probably erase these foundation lines underneath. And I'm going to finish it up by drawing another hand. This is going to be quick. So So I'm just trying to mirror that hand. And then that claw. I'll make the claw come up there. Make the wrist a little bit further down. Adding a bit of shadow in there. Because it's behind the body, so I'm going to make it a little darker so it doesn't too dominate. And I'm going to add in an extra leg here. So probably an ankle line there. Calf muscle. Shin. Toe claw. Back of the foot. A line for that tendon like there. Fixing that up so it's a little bit more in proportion. Keep in mind the angles and sharpness of the heel. Drawing a toe for that sickle claw. Line there for that inside of the claw. So we got a circle there, and that comes into about there. Gonna add a few little lines so it's not completely attached, but it's not detached. I'm gonna draw another claw like the other one. Tidy it up here. Drawing in the muscle, and then I'm gonna do like what I did there, and I'm just gonna shade it in to make it a little bit darker, because when you make it a little bit darker, it looks like it's behind a bit more, because it's shrouded in a little bit of shadow of the body. So I'm just going over that lightly in pencil, very lightly. You can build it up if you want, but don't go overboard. And I'm shading it a little bit darker at the crease and bringing it lighter out there. So I'm just going to go through and tidy it up. And erase some of the light lines around the outer edge. Might actually put in a few lines along the tail and make that a little bit stronger. Just for the muscles. And there we have it, the full body Velociraptor from Jurassic Park. If you're not sick of watching me drawing Velociraptors, I've got this video right here, which is Blue running from Jurassic World. And if you'd like to watch even more videos, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification, and you'll know when I've got future videos coming up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheerio for now.